For thousands of years, the world has echoed one sacred truth. There is only one God, one Creator, one Yahweh. But what if that's only part of the story? What if, hidden within the very pages of the Bible, there are verses that quietly point to the presence of another? Not an idol, not a fallen angel, but a second divine being, holy, powerful, and ancient, a being who stood beside Yahweh from the beginning, yet whose name was never revealed. Most believers have never heard this, and there's a reason for that. This is the part of Scripture the church avoids, because if it's true, it changes everything. It challenges the very foundation of monotheism. It suggests that from the dawn of creation, there may have been more than one divine presence at work. This isn't speculation. The very first sentence of the Bible holds a clue, one that most never notice. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. A verse we've all heard, almost sacred in its simplicity. But in Hebrew, the word used for God is Elohim, a grammatically plural noun. Not El, not Eloah, but Elohim. Literally, gods. And yet, the verb that follows, created, is singular. The Bible opens with a divine paradox. Gods created. Why would the Scriptures begin with a plural noun followed by a singular verb? Was it poetic, symbolic, or was it something deeper, a hidden truth, whispered through language that only the wise would see? Scholars have tried to smooth this contradiction by calling it the plural of majesty, a linguistic tool meant to emphasize God's greatness. But that explanation quickly breaks down. The word Elohim appears over 2,000 times in the Old Testament, and in many cases it clearly refers to multiple beings, not just one. And then it gets even stranger. In Genesis 1:26 we read, "Let us make man in our image." Who is us? Who is God speaking to? Angels? The heavenly host? Or is he speaking to another divine being, one who was there in the beginning, standing beside him, sharing his essence, yet remaining unnamed? A being whose existence has been buried beneath centuries of translation, but whose fingerprints are everywhere. Let us make man, the divine counsel that was erased. And then came the moment that changed everything, when God said, "Let us make man in our image." It wasn't a slip of the tongue, it wasn't poetic language, it was a deliberate, plural declaration at the very heart of creation. Let us make man in our image. For generations, theologians have tried to contain this verse, to tame it, to explain it away. Some claimed God was addressing the angels. Others insisted it was a literary device, a royal we used to signify majesty. But none of these theories truly withstand scrutiny, because angels are never described as creators. Nowhere in Scripture does it say that man was made in the image of angels. They are messengers, servants, even warriors, but never architects of life. And if God was only speaking to himself, why would he use a form of speech so easily misunderstood, so openly plural? What if it wasn't meant to be misunderstood at all? What if this verse is not confusing, unless we ignore what ancient readers already knew? You see, buried within the oldest layers of Hebrew thought lies a concept modern theology has tried to erase: the divine council, a heavenly assembly of spiritual beings, Elohim, who stood in the presence of Yahweh, served under his authority, and participated in the governance of creation. In the ancient Near East, kings never ruled alone. They had councils, advisors, princes, voices. And if heaven mirrors earth, why would Yahweh, the King of all creation, be any different? The Bible itself gives us glimpses. In Job 1, the sons of God present themselves before the Lord. In 1 Kings 22, a spirit steps forward from the heavenly host to carry out divine judgment. And in Psalm 82, the veil is pulled back entirely. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. Psalm 82:1. Most translations hide this. The word Elohim, plural, divine, is softened into judges or mighty ones. But the Hebrew is clear. God stands among gods, not idols, not metaphors, real spiritual beings, real presences, and Yahweh is not threatened by them, he rules over them. These Elohim were not equal to Yahweh. They were created beings, subordinate, but still divine in nature, and according to Scripture they weren't silent, they weren't passive, they were witnesses to creation. They participated in heavenly decisions. They had roles until many of them rebelled. So when Genesis says, "Let us make man," it may not be metaphor, but memory, a moment recorded in language older than doctrine, a glimpse into the inner workings of a world we were never supposed to see. And if this counsel was present at the creation of man, what does that say about us? Were we created in the image of Yahweh alone? Or were we shaped in reflection of the entire divine assembly? A blend of purpose, a fusion of spirit and sovereignty, a reflection of more than one face and more than one will. This is the mystery the church rarely speaks of, because if it's true, then the Bible doesn't just speak of one divine presence at the beginning. It speaks of a throne surrounded by many, and one voice among them that still echoes through eternity. The angel of the Lord, Yahweh or someone else. There is a figure who walks through the pages of the Old Testament like a shadow. He appears without warning. He speaks with divine authority. He performs miracles, commands armies, and accepts worship. And yet, he is never called Yahweh directly. The Bible calls him the angel of the Lord. But this title is deceptive, because this angel is not like the others. When ordinary angels appear, they make it clear, "Do not worship me. I am only a servant." But the angel of the Lord never says that. Instead, he speaks as if he is God himself. When he appears to Hagar in the wilderness, he says, "I will increase your descendants," not "God will, I will." And then the very next verse says, "It was the Lord who spoke to her." Who is this being? In Exodus 3, Moses encounters the burning bush. The text begins by saying, "The angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire." But then, the voice that speaks from the flames is not that of an angel. It is the voice of Yahweh. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." This is not just a messenger, this is a presence, a voice that burns from the fire yet is not consumed, a being who is distinct from Yahweh, yet somehow Yahweh himself. And this mystery doesn't stop there. In Judges 13, the parents of Samson encounter the angel of the Lord. They offer him a sacrifice. Fire ascends from the altar, and the angel rises into the flame. In terror they cry out, "We have seen God." Time and time again this being appears. He speaks, he blesses, he commands. But he does not identify himself as an angel in the way others do. He acts as God in disguise. So what are we looking at? A mere angel with special authority? Or a manifestation of Yahweh, split into a second form? Some scholars believe this is what theologians now call a theophany, a visible appearance of God in physical form. But that doesn't explain the separation, because at times the angel of the Lord speaks to Yahweh. At times he is sent by Yahweh. How can Yahweh send himself? Unless this is not the Father, but another divine presence, one who carries the name, the authority, and the essence of God, but is distinct, a second power in heaven, a being who has no name, but all the attributes of the Most High, a being who walks between realms, speaks with fire, and who may have been preparing for something far greater to come. Melchizedek, the priest-king without beginning or end, Before the law, before the Levitical priesthood, before Moses had even descended from Sinai, there was a man, a king, a priest, a mystery. His name was Melchizedek. He appears suddenly in Genesis 14, after Abraham's victory in battle. No warning, no backstory. He steps into the narrative, blesses Abraham in the name of God Most High, and receives a tithe from the Father of Nations. And just as suddenly as he arrives, he vanishes. But it's not his brief appearance that unsettles scholars. It's what is said about him later. Thousands of years after that fleeting encounter, the book of Hebrews reaches back and describes Melchizedek with words that defy human logic. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. Hebrews 7:3. What kind of man has no beginning, no end, no ancestry, no death? The ancient Jews believed in the importance of genealogies. Bloodlines defined priesthood, inheritance, and identity. Yet Melchizedek stands outside all of it. He is a king of righteousness, a priest of the Most High, and somehow eternal. Even more troubling is the role he holds. In the Torah, no one could be both king and priest. These roles were divided. One held the sword, the other the incense. But Melchizedek holds both. He rules a city, Salem, later known as Jerusalem, and he offers bread and wine, a gesture that seems almost prophetic. So who is he? Was Melchizedek just a man set apart by God for a unique task? Or was he something more, something otherworldly? The writer of Hebrews doesn't call him an angel, nor does he call him a prophet. He says Melchizedek resembles the Son of God, not just symbolically, but in essence, in form, in nature. Some early church fathers believed that Melchizedek was the pre-incarnate Christ, appearing before Bethlehem, before the manger, before Mary ever whispered his name. Others believed he was a heavenly priest sent to earth, a divine figure cloaked in human form, hidden in the folds of history. Because there's one detail that's often overlooked. Melchizedek is never said to have died. He simply disappears. No grave, no farewell, no ending. And that's what makes him dangerous to tradition. Because if Melchizedek was truly eternal, then he wasn't just a priest. He was a presence, a divine witness walking among men, holding bread and wine, long before the Last Supper, wearing a crown, long before the cross. And if he never died, where is he now? A war between powers, two divine forces in conflict? If there were truly only one power in heaven, one uncontested throne, then the scriptures should speak with perfect harmony. One voice, one will, one story. But they don't. Hidden within the Bible are moments that don't feel like commands from a single authority, but like echoes from a higher realm, one divided by conflict. A realm where more than one divine presence holds power, and where those powers don't always agree. In the book of Daniel, a strange and unsettling scene unfolds. Daniel fasts and prays for 21 days, seeking a word from heaven. When the angel finally arrives, he offers a stunning explanation for the delay. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me for 21 days, he says, but Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. What does that even mean? That an angel sent by God was resisted, blocked, held back by another being, one with authority over a nation? This prince of Persia isn't human. He exists in the heavenly realm. He delays the will of God. And Michael, called not just an angel but a chief prince, is summoned to intervene. This is not metaphor. This is warfare in the unseen realm. A battle not between good and evil, but between ruling powers, beings with territory, rank, and mission. The Bible speaks of Yahweh as supreme, but it also hints that he is not alone in the spiritual government of the cosmos. In Psalm 82, we're given a rare glimpse into heaven's courtroom. Yahweh stands among other gods, Elohim, and judges them. He says, "You are gods, sons of the Most High, but you will die like mere men." These weren't statues. They were real beings, entrusted with authority over nations, and they failed. They became corrupt, unjust, hungry for worship. Even Deuteronomy dares to whisper this forbidden idea. In chapter 32, it says that when the Most High divided the nations, he set the boundaries according to the number of the sons of God. In other words, he allotted the nations to lesser divine beings, spiritual rulers, while he chose Israel for himself. The nations were placed under their care, but many of them rebelled. They demanded sacrifices. They became the false gods of myth and legend, and Yahweh's patience ran thin. So what are we looking at? A clean hierarchy under one divine king, or a fractured realm, one where power was shared, abused, and eventually judged? And if Yahweh allowed this, why? Why would the Most High tolerate lesser gods ruling nations, spreading darkness, delaying his will? Unless it was all part of a deeper design. What if this wasn't just rebellion, but a setup for restoration? A cosmic divide that made way for a divine confrontation. A moment in history when a second figure, equal in glory, yet cloaked in mystery, would descend into the realm of corrupt powers, not to conquer with force, but to overturn the throne of darkness with something far more dangerous: humility. Because sometimes the greatest war isn't fought in the heavens, it's fought in flesh, on dusty roads, in silence, with blood. And the gods who ruled in pride never saw it coming. Is the second God Christ before his incarnation? We've followed a thread, one barely visible to the eye, a whisper woven through centuries of scripture, from the plural name Elohim to a divine council hidden in plain sight, from a nameless angel who speaks as God to a priest-king without beginning or end, from a war among heavenly powers to thrones shaken by judgment. And now, one question remains. Was there truly another God in the Bible, one who walked beside Yahweh, yet was not a rival? Not a second God in opposition, but a second presence, eternal, divine, one with Yahweh, yet distinct enough to be seen, to be heard, to be sent. The Gospel of John opens with a sentence that seems to gather every shadow we've traced and flood it with light. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. A presence that is both with God and is God. This is not poetry, it is revelation, because all throughout the Old Testament, this presence keeps returning, sometimes as a voice in the fire, sometimes as a warrior, sometimes as a priest, always as one who carries divine authority. He forgives sins, he accepts worship, he speaks in the first person as Yahweh himself, and yet he is sent, he appears. He disappears. He is both known and unknown. Some say it was an angel, others a theophany. But the early church fathers believed something far more profound, that this was not merely a manifestation of God. It was Christ himself before the incarnation, not in flesh, not born of Mary, but already alive, already moving. A divine figure who was there from the beginning, walking beside the Most High, yet cloaked in mystery. This is why Jesus could say, "Before Abraham was, I am." It wasn't blasphemy. It was memory. He wasn't claiming to be another prophet. He was revealing that he had always been the one who spoke to them. He was the angel who wrestled with Jacob, the fire that did not consume the bush, the fourth man in the furnace. The Melchizedek who offered bread and wine before the law even existed, the commander of heaven's army, unseen but always present. And when the time came, he stepped down into the world ruled by rebellious gods, not to seize power, but to surrender, not with thunder, but with blood, because the second God was never second. He was the Word, the arm of the Lord, the face of God that could be seen, the one who created with Yahweh, the one who bore the image in which we were made. He was not hidden. We just weren't ready to see him.